Good evening, Philly friends and friends who love Philly writers. I'm Emma Eisenberg. I'm a writer and the director of Blue Stoop Philadelphia. We're a nonprofit home for writers here in Philadelphia. We create inclusive literary community, inspire creativity, and support writers from all walks of life. Thank you to the Blue Stoop staff who made this night possible. Maya Arthur, Jean Murphy, Levi Bentley, Boston Gordon, and Nikki Volpicelli. Thank you. Thank you to the Cherry Street Pier, where Blue Stoop is an artist in residence and where we are currently filming. Thank you to Aly Spengler, who shot and produced this event. And thank you to our featured readers, Brittney Cooper, Myriam Gurba, and Ishii, D. Matthews,
Trapeta Mayson,
Kiley Reid, Nikil Saval, Eric Smith, Amber Sparks, and Elissa Washuta. Thank you so much for being here, truly. Your generosity is what makes Blue Stoop's work possible. Tonight, we will hear from 10 writers from living in or proximate to Philadelphia. They have each chosen the words of another writer they think we need to hear from in this moment, relevant either to revolution or to solace. God knows we need both. Our readers' full and illustrious bios are also on our website. I won't read them now in full for time's sake, but just know that between all of these readers, they have been longlisted for the Booker Prize, started national conversations about diversity and inclusion in publishing, won public office in Philadelphia, served as City Poet Laureate, translated gay erotic manga, and much more. Again, our readers' full bios and the link to purchase their books can be found on our website, bluestoop.org. Sit back and settle in.
Hi, my name's Eric Smith. I'm a young adult author and literary agent living here in Philadelphia. So all I do is books. And I'm really excited to be sharing a piece from We Are Not From Here by Jenny Torres Sanchez. It's a really powerful young adult novel about migrants south in the United States. And I'm just so thrilled I get to share a bit from it. So thank you. When you live in a place like this, you're always planning your escape. Even if you don't know when you'll go. Even if you stare out your kitchen window, looking for reasons to stay, you stare at the red Coca-Cola sign on the faded turquoise wall of Don Felicia's store that serves the coldest Coca-Colas you've ever tasted. The gauzy orange of the earth, both on the ground and swirling in the air, that has seeped into every one of your happiest memories. The green palms of the tree you climbed one time to pick and crack the ripest coconut that held the sweetest water you gave your mother. And the deep blue of the sky you tell yourself is the only blue here. You can look at all of this and still be planning your escape. Because you've also seen how blood turns brown as it seeps into the concrete, as it mixes with dirt and the excrements and innards of leaking dead bodies. You've stared at those dark places with your friends on the way to school, the places people have died, the places they disappeared from, the places they reappeared one morning, months later, sometimes alive, sometimes dead, but mostly in fragments. You've watched dogs piss in those places, on those bodies that once cried with life. You plan your escape, because no matter how much color there is, or how much color you make yourself see, you've watched every beautiful thing disappear from her, made murky by night and darkness and shadow. You plan your escape because you've seen your world turn black. You plan your escape, but you're never really ready to go. Mama tells me I have an artist's heart. She's told me this ever since I can remember, usually out of nowhere. I'll feel her gaze on me, and I'll look over at her and she'll say, "You have an artist's heart, Pulga." I didn't know what she meant when I was younger, but I didn't care because she always smiled with this kind of smile that was happy and proud and sad, all at the same time. And it made me feel like this thing, this artist's heart she was talking about, was something big. When she first said this, I pictured myself with a little mustache and beret, like Tom and Jerry wear in the cartoons when they whip up a masterpiece. No kidding, 5 seconds flat before they're chased by each other or that bulldog or a broom. 5 seconds. That kind of illusion probably isn't good for little kids. But then again, getting chased is life, right? So maybe those cartoons did teach me something. Anyway, the truth is that that's not the kind of artist I want to be. I want to be the kind of artist my father was, a musician who made cool-ass music and dreamed big dreams. Maybe that's what having an artist heart means, dreaming. Or maybe it means seeing color in the world, noticing and searching for it everywhere, in everything, because the world can be such a dark place. Or maybe it means you feel things you wish you didn't. Maybe it means that when you see blood on the concrete, you can't stop wondering who it belonged to. Maybe it means part of you wants to cry and wants to run.
Hi, I'm Kiley Reid. I'm a writer and I live in Philadelphia, and I'm so happy to be with you this evening. Whenever I'm writing, if I need a little bit of a break or just to give my brain a rest, I often go to YouTube to look up a small short video of a dance or a cartoon or someone I find inspiring, and Fred Hampton is very often the person I put into the search bar. His thoughts on theory and a revolution are very inspiring, and he's also just incredible to watch speak. He has such a presence that is really inspiring on a number of levels. So I am so thrilled to be reading a portion of one of his speeches to you tonight. This is a speech that he gave in 1969 in Chicago at Olivet Baptist Church. Every time I speak in a church, I try to, speak about Martin Luther King. I have a lot of respect for Martin Luther King. I think he was one of the greatest orators that the country ever produced. And I listen to anyone who speaks well because I like to listen to that. Martin Luther King said that it might look dark sometime, and it might look dark over here on the north side. Maybe you thought the room was going to be packed with people, and maybe you thought you might have to turn some people away and you might not have enough people here. Maybe some of the people you think should be here are not here, and you think that, well, if they're not here, then it won't be as good as we thought it could have been. And maybe you thought that you need more people here than you have here. Maybe you think that the pigs are going to be able to pressure you and put enough pressure to squash your movement even before it starts. But Martin Luther King said that he heard somewhere that only when it is dark can you see the stars. And we're not worried about it being dark. He said that the arm of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards heaven. We got Huey P. Newton in jail, and Eldridge Cleaver underground. And Prentice Bunchy Carter has been murdered. Bobby Hutton and John Huggins been murdered. And a lot of people think that the Black Panther Party, in a sense, is giving up. But let us say this, that we've made the kind of commitment to the people that hardly anyone else has ever made. We have decided that although some of us come from what some of you would call petty bourgeois families, though some of us could be, in a sense, on what you call the mountaintop. We could be integrated into the society working with people that we may never have a chance to work with. Maybe we could be on the mountaintop, and maybe we wouldn't have to be hiding when we go to speak places like this. Maybe we wouldn't have to worry about court cases and going to jail and being sick. We say that even though all of those luxuries exist on the mountaintop, we understand that you people and your problems are right here in the valley. We and the Black Panther Party, because of our dedication and understanding, went into the valley knowing that the people are in the valley, knowing that our plight is the same plight as the people in the valley, knowing that our enemies are on the mountaintop, to our friends are in the valley, and even though it's nice to be on the mountaintop, we're going back to the valley. Because we understand that there's work to be done in the valley. And when we get through with this work in the valley, then we got to go to the mountaintop. We're going to the mountaintop because there's a motherfucker on the mountaintop that's playing king, and he's been bullshitting us. And we've got to go up on the mountaintop, not for the purpose of living his lifestyle and living like he lives. We've got to go up on the mountaintop to make this motherfucker understand, God damn it, that we are coming from the valley. Thank you so much for having me. I hope next time it's in person. Stay well, be safe.
Hi, my name is Nikil Saval, and I'll be reading Ode to the West Wind by Percy Shelley. I chose this because Shelley is one of the great radical poets of the 18th century, writing in English. This is a poem about hope in dark times, and it is about an individual being fueled and animated by a collective spirit for radical change. So it was one of the things that I thought of when I thought of reading something in this moment. Ode to the West Wind. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven, like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes. O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds, where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within a grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion o'er the dreaming earth, and fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odors plain and hill. Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, O hear. Thou on whose stream mid the steep sky's commotion, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are shed, shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. Angels of rain and lightning, there are spread on the blue surface of thine airy surge, like the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce Maenad, even from the dim verge of the horizon to the zenith's height, the locks of the approaching storm. Thou, dirge of the dying year, to which this closing night will be the dome of a vast sepulchre, vaulted with all thy congregated might of vapors, from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst. O hear. Thou who didst waken from his summer dreams the blue Mediterranean, where he lay, lulled by the coil of his crystalline streams, beside a pumice isle in Baez Bay, and saw in sleep old palaces and towers quivering within the waves' intenser day, all overgrown with azure moss and flowers so sweet the sense faints picturing them. Thou for whose path the Atlantic's level powers cleave themselves into chasms, while far below the sea blooms and the oozy woods which wear the sapless foliage of the ocean know thy voice and suddenly grow gray with fear and tremble and despoil themselves. O hear. If I were a dead leaf thou mightest bear, if I were a swift cloud to fly with thee, a wave to pant beneath thy power and share the impulse of thy strength, only less free than thou, O uncontrollable. If even I were as in my boyhood and could be the comrade of thy wanderings over heaven, as then, when to outstrip thy skiey speed scarce seemed a vision, I would ne'er have striven, as thus with thee in prayer in my sore need. O lift me as a wave, a leaf, a cloud. I fall upon the thorns of life. I bleed. A heavy weight of hours has chained and bowed one too like thee, tameless and swift and proud. Make me thy lyre, even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. Be thou, spirit fierce, my spirit. Be thou me, impetuous one. Drive my dead thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth, and by the incantation of this verse, scatter, as from an unextinguished hearth, ashes and sparks, my words among mankind. Be through my lips to unawakened earth the trumpet of a prophecy. O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind?
My name is Elissa Washuta. I am a member of the Cowlitz Indian tribe and a nonfiction writer. I'm going to read to you one story from American Indian Stories by Zitkala Shah. A Dream of Her Grandfather. Her grandfather was a Dakota medicine man. Among the Indians of his day, he was widely known for his successful healing work. He was one of the leading men of his tribe and came to Washington, D.C. with one of the first delegations relative to affairs concerning the Indian people and the United States government. His was the first band of the Great Sioux Nation to make treaties with the government in the hopes of bringing about an amicable arrangement between the red and white Americans. The journey to the nation's capital was made almost entirely on ponyback, there being no railroads, and the Sioux delegation was beset with many hardships on the trail. His visit to Washington, in behalf of peace among men, proved to be his last earthly mission. From a sudden illness, he died and was buried here. When his small granddaughter grew up, she learned the white man's tongue and followed in the footsteps of her grandfather to the very seat of government to carry on his humanitarian work. Though her days were filled with problems for welfare work among her people, she had a strange dream one night during her stay in Washington. The dream was this. Returning from an afternoon out, she found a large cedar chest had been delivered to her home in her absence. She sniffed the sweet perfume of the redwood, which reminded her of the breath of the forest, and admired the box so neatly made, without trimmings. It looked so clean, strong, and durable in its native genuineness. With elation, she took the tag in her hand and read her name aloud. "Who sent me this cedar chest?" she asked, and was told it came from her grandfather. Wondering what gift it could be her grandfather wished now to confer upon her, wholly disregarding his death years ago, she was all eagerness to open the mystery chest. She remembered her childhood days and the stories she loved to hear about the unusual powers of her grandfather. Recalled how she, the wee girl, had coveted the medicine bags, beaded and embroidered in porcupine quills, in symbols designed by the great medicine man, her grandfather. Well did she remember her merited rebuke that such things were never made for relics. Treasures came in due time to those ready to receive them. In great expectancy, she lifted the heavy lid of the cedar chest. "Oh," she exclaimed with a note of disappointment, seeing no beaded Indian regalia or trinkets. "Why does my grandfather send such a light gift in a heavy, large box?" She was mystified and much perplexed. The gift was a fantastic thing, of texture far more delicate than a spider's flimsy web. It was a vision, a picture of an Indian camp, not painted on canvas, nor yet written. It was dream stuff, suspended in the thin air, filling the enclosure of the cedar wood container. As she looked upon it, the picture grew more and more real, exceeding the proportions of the chest. It was all so elusive, a breath might have blown it away. Yet there it was, real as life, a circular camp of white cone-shaped teepees, astir with Indian people. The village crier, with flowing headdress of eagle plumes, mounted on a prancing white pony, rode within the arena. Indian men, women, and children stopped in groups and clusters, while bright, painted faces peered out of teepee doors to listen to the chieftain's crier. At this point, she too heard the full, melodious voice. She heard distinctly the Dakota words he proclaimed to the people. "Be glad, rejoice, look up, and see the new day dawning. Help is near. Hear me, every one." She caught the glad tidings and was thrilled with new hope for her people. Thank you.
I'm Trupita B Mason. I'm Poet Laureate for the City of Philadelphia. Today I'm reading June Jordan's Poem About My Rights. June Jordan, Black, queer, activist from Harlem who's no longer with us. And June Jordan wrote this poem in 1970, but today it is still relevant as we fight against injustices in our country, in the world, in the community. Poem about my rights. Even tonight, I need to take a walk and clear my head about this poem, about why I can't go out without changing my clothes, my shoes, my body posture, my gender identity, my age, my status as a woman alone in the evening, alone on the streets, alone not being the point being that I can't do what I want to do with my own body because I am the wrong sex, the wrong age, the wrong skin. And suppose it was not here in the city, but down on the beach or far into the woods, and I wanted to go there by myself, thinking about God, or thinking about children, or thinking about the world, all of it disclosed by the stars and the silence. I could not go, and I could not think that I could not stay there alone as I need to be alone, because I can't do what I want to do with my own body. And who in the hell set things up like this? And in France, they say if the guy penetrates but does not ejaculate, then he did not rape me. And if after stabbing him, if after screams, if after begging that bastard, and even after smashing a hammer to his head, if even after that he and his buddies fuck me, after that, then I consented and there was no rape. Because finally, you understand, finally, they fucked me over because I was the wrong again to be me, being me where I was, wrong to be who I am. Which is exactly like South Africa, penetrating into Namibia, penetrating into Angola. And does that mean, how do you know if Pretoria ejaculates? What will the evidence look like? The proof of the monster jackboot ejaculation on black land. And if after Namibia, and if after Angola, and if after Zimbabwe, and if after all of my kinsmen and women resist even to self-immolation of the villages, and if after that we lose nevertheless, what will the big boys say? Will they claim my consent? Do you follow me? We are the wrong people of the wrong skin on the wrong continent. And what in the hell is everybody being reasonable about? And according to the Times this week, back in 1966, the CIA decided that they had this problem, and the problem was a man named Nkrumah. So they killed him. And after that, it was Patrice Lumumba. And before that, it was my father on the campus of my Ivy League school. And my father afraid to walk into the cafeteria because he said he was the wrong age, the wrong skin, the wrong gender identity. And he was paying my tuition. And before that, it was my father saying I was wrong, saying that I should have been a boy because he wanted one, a boy, and that I should have had lighter skin, and that I should have had straighter hair, and that I should not be so boy crazy, but instead I should just be one, a boy. And before that, it was my mother pleading plastic surgery for my nose and braces for my teeth and telling me to let the books loose, to let them loose, in other words. I am very familiar with the problems of the CIA and the problems of South Africa and the problems of Exxon Corporation and the problems of white America in general and the problems of the teachers and the preachers and the FBI and the social workers and my particular mom and dad. I'm very familiar with the problems because the problems turned out to be me. I am the history of rape. I'm the history of the rejection of who I am. I am the history of the terrorized incarceration of myself. I am the history of battery assault. and limitless armies against whatever I want to do with my mind and my body and my soul. And whether it's about walking out at night, or whether it's about the love that I feel, or whether it's about the sanctity of my vagina, or the sanctity of my national boundaries, or the sanctity of my leaders, or the sanctity of each and every desire that I know about my personal, idiosyncratic, and indisputably single and singular heart, I have been raped because I have been the wrong sex, the wrong age, the wrong skin, the wrong nose, the wrong hair, the wrong need, the wrong dream, the wrong geographic, the wrong sartorial. I have been the meaning of rape. I have been the problem everyone seeks to eliminate by forced penetration, with or without the evidence of slime. But let this be unmistakable. This poem is not consent. I do not consent to my mother, to my father, to the teachers, to the FBI, to South Africa, to Bedford-Stuy, to Frank Avenue, to Park Avenue, to American Airlines, to the hardened idlers on the corners, to the sneaky creeps in cars. I am not wrong. Wrong is not my name. My name is my own, my own, my own. I can't tell you who the hell set these things up like this, but I can tell you that from now on, my resistance, my simple and daily and nightly self-determination may very well cost you your life.
Since many of us gathered this time last year at the ICA Museum with the Paul Robeson House and Museum, a lot has happened. Here is an extremely incomplete list of things that have happened in the Philly writing community this year. Philly writers and bookish folk have written, read in private, read in public, offered critique and support for each other's words. We have sold books, acquired books, published essays and poems and stories and articles, edited books, edited literary journals, transitioned hundreds of meticulously planned programs online to an unknown virtual space, bought books to keep our local bookstores afloat, donated to restore the window at Uncle Bobby's when it was broken again and again and again, become New York Times bestsellers, appeared on Good Morning America, put their bodies on the line to report on the uprising. Harriet's Bookshop opened this year in Fishtown and passed out free copies of essential Black liberation texts to protesters during the fight for racial justice. Penn Book Center, or People's Books and Culture, closed in University City this year. Our city governors cut Philly's art budget by 2/3 and completely eliminated the Office of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy. Though this came during leaner times for everyone under a pandemic, these cuts were far worse than those faced by arts communities in any other major city in America. We saw the foundations of difficult and important reckonings around racial justice in the Philly playwriting community. Philadelphia Inquirer staff of color led a strike demanding greater moves towards racial equity and accountability in our city's leading newspaper. The top editor at Philly Mag stepped down, citing the need for, quote, deep and meaningful change at that magazine. Philly writers phone banked, wrote letters, wrote postcards, went door to door, counted ballots in the convention center, danced outside the convention center dressed as mailboxes, and danced in our streets and in our houses, alone and not alone.
Thank you for your generosity to Blue Stoop, without which our work would not be possible. This wonderful program has taken us nearly to our goal of $5,500 for student financial aid and paying Philly writers a living wage. But we still need some support to close the gap. If you wish to give additionally to Blue Stoop or want to send a friend or loved one our way, you may simply visit our website homepage at www.bluestoop.org. Now, back to the second half of our program.
My name is Myriam Gurba. I am a writer, a teacher, and an activist. And I have chosen to read a poem by June Jordan titled, "I Must Become a Menace to My Enemies." And I once had the incredible privilege of listening to June Jordan read. And it was one of those instances that was a life-altering experience. I Must Become a Menace to My Enemies, dedicated to the poet Agostinho Neto, President of the People's Republic of Angola, 1976. 1. I will no longer lightly walk behind a one of you who fear me. Be afraid. I plan to give you reasons for your jumpy fits and facial tics. I will not walk politely on the pavements anymore. And this is dedicated in particular to those who hear my footsteps or the insubstantial rattling of my grocery cart, then turn around, see me, and hurry on. Away from this impressive terror, I plan to blossom bloody on an afternoon, surrounded by my comrades singing terrible revenge in merciless, accelerating rhythms. But I have watched a blind man studying his face. I have set the table in the evening and sat down to eat the news. Regularly, I have gone to sleep. There's no one to forgive me. The dead do not give a damn. I live like a lover who drops her dime into the phone just as the subway shakes into the station, wasting her message, canceling the question of her call, fulminating or forgetful but late, and always after the fact that could save or condemn me. I must become the action of my fate. 2, how many of my brothers and my sisters will they kill before I teach myself retaliation? Shall we pick a number? South Africa, for instance. Do we agree that more than 10,000 in less than a year, but less than 5,000 slaughtered in more than 6 months will? What is the matter with me? I must become a menace to my enemies. 3, and if I ever let you slide, who should be extirpated from my universe? Who should be cauterized from Earth completely? Law and order jerk-offs of the first, the terrorist degree. Then let my body fail my soul in its bedeviled lecheries. And if I ever let love go because the hatred and the whisperings become a phantom dictate, I obey in lieu of impulse and realities, the blossoming flamingos of my wild mimosa trees, then let love freeze me out. I must become a menace to my enemies.
I'm Brittney Cooper, Associate Professor of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at Rutgers University. I'm a proud Black feminist, and I'm the author of Eloquent Rage, A Black Feminist Discovers Her Superpower. And today I'm going to read a piece, an excerpt of June Jordan's 1978 essay, Where's the Love? I am a feminist, and what that means to me is much the same as the meaning of the fact that I am Black. It means that I must undertake to love myself and to respect myself as though my very life depends upon self-love and self-respect. It means that I must everlastingly seek to cleanse myself of the hatred and the contempt that surrounds and permeates my identity. As a woman and as a Black human being in this particular world of ours, it means that the achievement of self-love and self-respect will require inordinate, hourly vigilance, and that I am entering my soul into a struggle that will most certainly transform the experience of all the peoples of the earth, as no other movement can in fact hope to claim. Because the movement into self-love, self-respect, and self-determination is the movement now galvanizing the true, the unarguable majority of human beings everywhere. This movement explicitly demands the testing of the viability of a moral idea. That the health, the legitimacy of any status quo, any governing force, must be measured according to the experiences of those who are comparatively powerless. Virtue is not to be discovered in the conduct of the strong vis-a-vis the powerful, but rather it is to be found in our behavior and policies affecting those who are different, those who are weaker or smaller than we. How do the strong, the powerful, treat children? How do we treat the aged among us? How do the strong and the powerful treat so-called minority members of the body politic? How do the powerful regard women? How do they treat us? Easily you can see that according to this criterion, the overwhelming reality of power and government and tradition is evil, is diseased, is illegitimate, and deserves nothing from us. No loyalty, no accommodation, no patience, no understanding. Except a clear-minded resolve to utterly change this total situation and thereby to change our own destiny. As a Black woman, as a Black feminist, I exist simultaneously as part of the powerless and as a part of the majority peoples of the world in two ways. I am powerless as compared to any man because women per se are kept powerless by men, by the powerful. I am powerless as compared to anyone white because Black and third world peoples are kept powerless by whites, by the powerful. I am the majority because women constitute the majority gender. I am the majority because Black and third world peoples constitute the majority of life on the planet. And it is here, in this extreme, inviolable coincidence of my status as a Black feminist, my status as someone twice stigmatized, my status as a Black woman, who is twice kin to the despised majority of all the human life that there is, it is here, in that extremity, that I stand in a struggle against suicide, and it is here, in this extremity, that I ask of myself and of anyone who would call me sister, where's the love? The love devolving from my quest for self-love and self-respect and self-determination must be, as I see it, something you can verify in the ways that I present myself to others and in the ways that I approach people different from myself. How do I reach out to the people I would like to call my sisters and my brothers and my children and my lovers and my friends? If I am a Black feminist serious in the undertaking of self-love, then it seems to me that the legitimate, the morally defensible character of the self-love that should be such that I gain and gain and gain, and the socio-psychic strength needed so that I may say, without fear, be able and willing to love and respect women, for example, who are not like me, women who are not feminist, women who are not professionals, women who are not as old or as young as I am, women who have neither job nor income, women who are not Black. And it seems to me that the socio-psychic strength that should follow from a morally defensible Black feminism will mean that I become able and willing without fear to love and respect all men who are able and willing without fear to love and respect me. In short, if the acquirement of my self-determination is part of a worldwide and inevitable and a righteous movement, then I should become willing and able to embrace more and more of the whole world without fear and also without self-sacrifice. Thank you.
My name is Airea Matthews. I'm a Philadelphia-based poet. I'll be reading The Next American Revolution, written by Grace Lee Boggs. Grace Lee Boggs lived from 1915 to 2015. She was an American activist who saw us through the Black radical tradition, through the women's tradition, all the way into contemporary politics. She was a stalwart in the Detroit community and a pure activist at heart and in spirit. I'll be taking it from the chapter 2, Revolution as a New Beginning. The next American revolution at this stage in our history is not principally about jobs or health insurance, or making it possible for more people to realize the American dream of upward mobility. It is about acknowledging that we Americans have enjoyed middle-class comforts at the expense of other people all over the world. It is about living the kind of lives that will not only slow down global warming, but also end the galloping inequality both inside this country and between the global north and the global south. It is about creating a new American dream whose goal is a higher humanity instead of the higher standard of living dependent on empire. It is about practicing a new, more active, global, and participatory concept of citizenship. It is about becoming the change we wish to see in the world. The courage, commitment, and strategies required for this kind of revolution are very different from those required to storm the Winter Palace or the White House. Instead of viewing the U.S. people as masses to be mobilized in increasingly aggressive struggles for higher wages, better jobs, or guaranteed health care, we must have the courage to challenge ourselves to engage in activities that build a new and better world by improving the physical, psychological, political, and spiritual health of ourselves, our families, our communities, our cities, our world, and our planet. We have to help the American people grow their souls enough to recognize that because we have been consuming 25% of the planet's fossil fuels, even though we are less than 5% of the world's population, we are the ones who must take the first big steps to reduce greenhouse emissions. We are the ones who must begin to live more simply so that others can simply live. Moreover, we urgently need to begin creating ways to live more frugally and more cooperatively now, because with times getting harder, we can easily slip into scapegoating the other or goose-stepping behind a nationalist leader as the good Germans did in the 1930s. This vision of an American revolution as transformation is the one projected by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his groundbreaking anti-Vietnam War speech on April 4th, 1967. As Vincent Harding, Martin's close friend and colleague, has pointed out, King was calling on us to redeem the soul of America. Speaking for the weak, the poor, the despairing, and the alienated in our inner cities and in the rice paddies of Vietnam, he was urging us to become a more mature people by making a radical revolution not only against racism, but also against materialism and militarism. He was challenging us to rededicate ourselves to the long and bitter but beautiful struggle for a new world. King was assassinated before he could devise concrete ways to move us toward this radical revolution of values. The question we need to struggle over is, why haven't we, who think for ourselves as American radicals, picked up the torch? Is it because a radical revolution of values against racism, materialism, militarism is beyond our imagination, even though we are citizens of a nation with 700 military bases whose unbridled consumerism imperils the planet? Therefore, World War IV, the war in which the whole world is now engaged, is a new kind of war, an ongoing and total war, the war of the empire of money against humanity. The empire of money seeks to impose the logic and practice of capital on everything, to turn every living being, the earth, our communities, and all our human relationships into commodities to be bought and sold on the market. It seeks to destroy everything that human beings have created: cultures, languages, memories, ideas, dreams, love, and respect for one another. It even destroys the material basis for the nation state that Western societies created in the 19th century to protect us, if only marginally, from the forces of money. Under these historically new conditions, the meaning of revolution must also undergo a dialectical change. Fighting on the side of humanity against the empire of money, we need to go beyond opposition, beyond rebellion, beyond resistance, beyond civic insurrection. We don't want to be like them. We don't want to become the political class to simply change presidents and switch governments. We want and need to create the other alternative world that is now possible and necessary. We want and need to exercise power, not take it. Once we understand that our schools are in such crisis because they were created 100 years ago in the industrial epoch to prepare children to become cogs in the economic machine, once we recognize that our challenge in the 21st century is to engage our children from K through 12 in problem-solving and community-building activities, children and young people will become participants in caring for their own health and that of their families and communities. By eating food they've grown for themselves instead of obesity, by creating and sharing information from the internet, and by organizing health festivals for the community, they will not only be caring for their own health, but also helping to heal our communities. Or, as I often put it, we have the power within us to create the world anew. We need to see that we can solve our health and education problems only by first creating a new concept of citizenship, one that will also cure our failing political system. That is what the next American Revolution is about.
Hello, I am Amber Sparks. I'm going to read actually two poems today. One of them is a poem that I thought was particularly apt, though very old, that was written by Percy Shelley, called England in 1819. And it's a poem that he wrote about a massacre that took place of protesters who were protesting electoral reform in England. And it seemed very appropriate for our moment. So I'm gonna read that. An old, mad, blind, despised, and dying king, princes the dregs of their dull race who flow through public scorn, mud from a muddy spring, rulers who neither see nor feel nor know, but leech-like to their fainting country cling till they drop, blind in blood without a blow. A people starved and stabbed in the untilled field. An army who liberticide and prey makes as two-edged sword to all who wield golden and sanguine laws which tempt and slay. Religion Christless, godless, a book sealed, a senate, time's worst statute, unrepealed. Our graves from which a glorious phantom may burst to illumine our tempestuous day. At least we hope so. And the other piece I'm going to read is a piece by Bernadette Mayer. It's a poem called The Tragic Condition of the Statue of Liberty, a collaboration with Emma Lazarus. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Your wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these the homeless tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Give me your gentrificatees of the Lower East Side, including all the well-heeled young Europeans who take apartments without leases. Give me your landlords, give me your cooperators, give me the guys who sell the food and the computers to the public schools in District 1. Give me the IRS, FBI, CIA, men who don't take election day off. Give me the certain members of the school board and give me the district superintendent. Give me all the greedy members of both American and foreign capitalist religious sects. Give me the parents of the punk people. Give me the guy who puts those stickers in the Rice Krispies. Give me the doctor who thinks his time is more valuable than mine and my daughter's and the time of all the other non-doctors in the world. Give me the mayor, his mansion, and the president and his White House. Give me the cops who laugh and sneer at meetings where they demonstrate the new uses of mace and robots instead of the old murder against people who are being evicted. Give me the landlord's sleazy lawyers and the deal-making judges in housing court, and give me the landlord's arsonist. Give me the known and unknown, big, important, rich guys who now bank on our quaint neighborhood. Give me, forgive me, the writers who have already or want to write bestsellers in this country. Together, we will go to restore Ellis Island, ravaged for years by wind, weather, and vandals. I was surprised and saddened when I heard the Statue of Liberty was in such a serious state of disrepair, and I want to help. This is the most generous contribution I can afford. Thank you.
I'm Ann Ishii, Executive Director of Asian Arts Initiative in North Chinatown, Philadelphia. I chose this piece by Zoe Leonard, written in 1992, which is around when Asian Arts Initiative was being thought up and conceived of, because I think the themes of this resonate even today, and I do think, as chaotic as 2020 has been, some of these problems have been here for a long time. I want a dyke for president. I want a person with AIDS for president and a fag for vice president. And I want someone with no health insurance. I want someone who grew up in a place where the earth was so saturated in toxic waste that they had no choice about getting leukemia. I want a president that had an abortion at 16. I want a candidate who isn't the lesser of two evils. And I want a president who lost their last lover to AIDS, who still sees that in their eyes every time they lay down to rest, who held their lover in their arms and knew they were dying. I want a president with no air conditioning, a president who stood online at the clinic, at the DMV, at the welfare office, who's been unemployed, who's been laid off, who's been sexually harassed and gay bashed and deported. I want someone who spent the night in the tombs and had a cross burned on their lawn and survived rape. I want someone who's been in love and been hurt, who respects sex, who's made mistakes and learned from them. I want a black woman for president. I want someone with bad teeth, someone who's had hospital food, someone who cross-dresses and has done drugs and has been in therapy. I want someone who's committed civil disobedience. And I want to know why that isn't possible. I want to know why we started to learn somewhere down the line that the president is always a clown, always a John, never a hooker, always the boss, never the worker. Always a liar. Always a thief, and never caught.